Some photos will be so damaged, all you can do is build something new instead of trying to clone in or patch away cracks. And you can see we've come quite far in this photo. In fact, if I zoom out and turn that edit layer on and off, you can see there's been a huge improvement. But we still have just a couple of the hardest areas left. Now I'm going to start with the easy one with this little eye and zoom in quite close. Now, eyes are a little bit tricky because we do know subconsciously a lot about human eyes, and if they're slightly off and look weird, we'll pick up on it. So, what I've got is my clone stamp tool here, and I'm going to use a really small brush with a bit of a soft edge and click in the area that doesn't have a scratch on the correct layer, and then start clearing out. So I'll make a stroke and resample, make a stroke and resample, and slowly work my way around these cracks in the eye, because if I do this wrong, you'll notice you get kind of a wild-eyed look in the eyes if they're done a little bit incorrectly. So what I'm doing is just moving the edge of that color out to where I think the edge of the eye is, or the edge of the iris, and then I'm going to do the same with the white of the eye and just move that in to clean up that area just a little bit. Now for parts like this wrinkle up here, the cloning doesn't work quite so well if it's going around a curve. So a great tip for you to do is to grab your lasso tool and choose just a little area and copy and then paste. Now that pasted right into where it was before, so you can't see it until I move it, but there it is. You can move it with your move tool and then transform and rotate if you need to get it to fit. So you can see that little piece has covered up that crack there. Now I don't want to have a whole lot of floaty layers, so usually when I do this I'll merge it down just the first thing off after I'm done moving it. You can do that by right-clicking on the new layer and telling it to merge down. You can also hit Command E, as in Evan or elephant, anytime, and that will merge whatever layer you're on to the one below it. I'm going to do the same trick for this little spot over here. And that's getting a lot closer. Let's take a look. Having that original layer below is really handy, especially when you're working on the eyes. You want to flip back and forth a couple times, because what you'll notice is a tendency to see things that normally you wouldn't. What I'm seeing is right here, this fixed layer seems to flatten in and isn't as round as maybe the original was. So that's where I can come in and fix this. And you know what, I'm even going to lower my opacity a little bit just so it's not quite so solid on the edge when I do this, and round it out. So this is where observation comes in. Sometimes if you're not sure why it looks weird, instead of just staring at it wondering why does that look weird, look at either the previous version or look up pictures of something of it online so you can see things to compare it to. And that will just really help out your visual analytic skills, so you can pull things apart and really be able to tell where they need to be fixed. So if I back out, that's quite a difference. And the only spot I see that's really weird is right here. See, I can't notice it when I'm that close up, but if I zoom out, it looks like the dark of the eye comes up here and then just kind of squiggles up. There is a tool I was going to save for a different tutorial, but I think it might work here. There's a water droplet under the gradient, and if you click on that and hold down, there's one called a smudge tool. And if you set this one at 100%, you might just be able to grab that little tiny bump up and just kind of smudge it down. Now this tool is not the best tool, but for little itty bitty tiny things it might just work, or make them look even crazier. Alright, so I'm going to give this one more go, and if I can't get it I'm going to move on and fix it later, but I think it's that little dark jag up that's making it look so funky. Yeah, that looks better. And from further away it looks significantly better. The ear is going to involve some cloning in. Now you can do the same thing. Actually, I changed my mind. Let me show you a slightly different thing to do. Grab your lasso tool and set the feather to 1 pixel. Having a slightly soft edge will make it easier to blend the edges together. And I'm going to create a selection just inside where the outside of that ear edge is going to be, and then click inside with my marquee tool and drag it over somewhere clean. Then I can copy, Command C, and paste. So this is the same thing we did with the eye, we're just going about it a slightly different way. Move it back in, and then merge down, Command E. And at this point, this is where you could take either your clone stamp tool and work around it with the opacity maybe set to 80-ish% and blend those layers together, which is how you make it start looking like it belongs to the area around it. If it's going too bright all the way out, I can lower the opacity and sample somewhere kind of dark. And this is just something that I've acquired with practice, so it's a trick I'm telling you. Give it a shot, see if it works for you. You know, if it doesn't, if you keep banging your head against this technique, consider if it's something you're going to be using again and again, and if it's worth the pain and agony of learning it. So I think it is, but this is stuff that I do all the time, so you might have a different opinion. So I've just selected the bottom round part of the ear, copied it and pasted, and now I've got this weird chunk hanging out right here that I don't need. So I can grab my eraser tool, which is just like a brush tool, and get rid of what shouldn't be there. So this is where really all of your previously learned skills come into play. If you want to make selections for things, if you need to copy and paste or transform, that all comes in. And then zoom out every now and again as you're working to see how that's coming. And actually that looks a lot better than I thought it did up close. It just goes to show sometimes you need to back out and get a little bit of perspective. Now areas that have some discoloration I really don't worry about at this point on a black and white photo, because one of the steps we'll take at the very end is putting a black and white adjustment layer filter over this, and then it wouldn't those would all disappear. So there's a rebuilt ear, and if you're still hanging in there with me, let's tackle the mouth, which is by far and away the most challenging part of this image. Usually what I'll do is look at the existing part of the mouth and say, okay, well, what is here that I can use to copy to recreate? And I think maybe this part where the lip meets up to the tongue might be something I can use again. So I'm going to copy and paste, and then move and transform and try and just form the curve of the mouth there that is missing. Copy it again. And this is always going to look weird before it looks right. I'm just going to warn you. So I have a couple of layers of bits of the mouth, and then I'm going back and erasing where those hard edges are to make them blend in a little bit more to the area around it. You can also take your dodge and burn tools and use them to lighten or darken an area so that it looks like it fits more in to wherever you've moved it. And then when you get those pieces put together, I'm going to merge them together, but not quite yet merge them down onto this other layer, because I think I'm still working with these. So there we've got kind of the lower lip area reconstructed, and to do the tongue you can try a bunch of different things. What I'm going to do is, with my feathering set at 1, I'm going to grab my lasso and kind of just draw in the area that I think the tongue would be filling up. And then I need to fill this with something. On your stamp tool there's a nifty trick that is one of those things you turn off and on, and you can tell it to sample all layers instead of the current layer, which means you can sample from any layer, not just the one that you're on, and fill in. So I'm going to, let's see, where do I want to grab this from? I'm going to grab the texture and color from up here on this little baby's forehead because it's just dark enough. I think it might work for the tongue. And keep in mind, you can always change things with levels and such, but I'm just blocking in the shape right now. Anytime you rebuild something, it's nice to remember that there is lighting on this object and look at where the light is coming from above. So there would be a highlight on this little tongue somewhere, but I'm not going to worry too much about it. Just make sure that there's a little bit lighter spot. It's not all flat gray. Now I'm going to deselect, Command D. Now it looks like there's a finger or something really yucky sticking out. So I'm going to, with this layer selected, maybe just go into my curves, which is in Images, or Image, and Adjustment, Curves, there it is. I'm so used to using that command I can't remember where to find things. And I'm going to darken this to where it's a little closer to the color that I want it to be. Or not so much the color, more like the value of what I want it to be. And before you go, oh my gosh, that looks horrible, because yeah, I kind of agree, it really does. Looks like I got part of my fixed lip in there, which I did not mean to do. Dang it. Okay, well, I'm going to have to come back and redo that a little bit. So I'm going to delete that, just work on the tongue. Now it's still not looking like it fits in at all, which we can definitely fix. Go up to Image and Adjustments, Hue, and we'll desaturate it. And then change, well, that might look about right. Alrighty, well with that done, I'm going to leave that there. I know it still looks really weird, but it's going to look out of place until we can fix some of this other stuff around it. So coming to the layer that has that problem on and trying to fix this is going to help. And then I think I'll do that same lip fix that I tried doing earlier and then totally ruined. I know, such a bummer. So that was me selecting the lip and copying it over. And then I'm going to come in and lighten this because it's going to look weird if it's dark all the way across. So we're starting to get there. Alright, patience is rewarded eventually. Right?